Hercules. Retold by Janet Hardy Gould.
Chapter 1. One day, in her palace in Greece, Princess Alcmene has a son. She calls the boy Hercules.
What a big, strong boy,
say Alcmene's friends when they see him.
Of course he's big and strong,
Smiles Alcmene.
His father's Zeus, king of the gods.
But not everybody likes Hercules. The goddess Hera is looking through the palace window. Hera is Zeus's wife, and she's far from happy.
When I see that boy,
says Hera,
I remember his mother, Alcmene. Why does Zeus always run after different women? It's not right. I'm his wife. He never thinks of me.
She leaves Alcmene's palace angry. Some nights later, Hera comes back, and she puts 2 big snakes in Hercules' bed.
Goodbye, little boy.
She laughs. But when Hera comes back next morning, Hercules is alive. He has the dead snakes in his hands. Cries Hera angrily.
You wait. I'm watching you, Hercules. You can't get away from me.
Later, when Hercules is older, he has many teachers. They come to the palace and teach him there. But he is not a very good student. He doesn't find it easy to learn, and he is often angry when he can't understand things. In the end, Alcmene sends Hercules away to some hills in the country near Thebes. He feels better there. He can run through the trees happily for hours, and there are lions for him to fight. Soon after he arrives, some people come to the hills because they want to take the king of Thebes' cows, but Hercules stops them. When King Creon of Thebes hears about Hercules, he speaks to his daughter.
Megara,
He says,
Hercules is a good, strong young man. Would you like to marry him?
Yes, father.
answers Megara. So Creon's men go and speak to Hercules, and he comes to Thebes and marries Megara. Soon they have 3 sons. Hercules is happy with his beautiful wife and his young sons. But Hera is angry.
Alcmene's son is doing well.
She says,
I must change that.
Very early one morning, when Hercules, Megara and their sons are in their beds, Hera sends a black cloud over Hercules' head. He opens his eyes, but he can't see a thing through the cloud. Suddenly, there are 4 men in black in front of him. They want to kill Megara and the boys.
I must stop them,
thinks Hercules. He fights the men and kills them one by one. Then he goes back to sleep. Later, when he opens his eyes, there are no men there, only his wife and sons. But their bodies are cold, and they do not move or speak. Suddenly, Hercules feels afraid.
"Oh no!"
He cries.
"My wife and sons are dead, and I'm their killer. It's the work of one of the gods. He or she is angry with me."
Hercules goes to King Creon and says,
"The gods are angry with me. Help me."
Very well.
says Creon.
What's the matter?
Hercules tells Creon everything. The king's face is white when he hears about his daughter and his grandsons.
Leave my palace at once,
says Creon.
I can do nothing for you. Go to Delphi and talk to the priestess there. Perhaps she can help.
At Delphi, the priestess tells Hercules,
It's a very bad crime when a man kills his wife and sons. So you're right. The gods are angry with you.
I know that. But what can I do about it?
asks Hercules.
For 12 years, you must work for King Eurystheus and do 12 tasks for him,
says the priestess.
When you finish, the gods can forgive your crime.
Oh no, not my cousin Eurystheus.
Thinks Hercules.
He doesn't like me because I'm bigger and stronger than him. And now I'm working for him.
Hercules goes to King Eurystheus and tells him about the 12 tasks.
All right, Hercules.
Smiles Eurystheus coldly.
I have a first task for you. There's a big, hungry lion in Nemea. It's eating everybody there. Kill it and bring its dead body back to me.
Hercules leaves Eurystheus's palace at once.
Good luck with your first and last task, Hercules.
Laughs the king. Just then, the goddess Hera arrives.
Good work, Eurystheus. Hercules is a dead man, I think.
She laughs.
No one can fight that lion and get away alive.
Chapter 2. Hercules goes to Nemea and finds the lion, but it's sleeping when he arrives.
I can kill it with 1 or 2 arrows,
he thinks. But his arrows don't go through the lion's skin. So then he hits the lion on the head with his sword. but the lion only opens one eye and goes back to sleep. In the end, Hercules kills the lion with his hands, and after that, he takes off its skin. He quickly puts the lion's skin over his head and back.
When I wear this, no arrows or swords can kill me,
he says happily. He then runs back to the king's palace. Eurystheus is very afraid when he sees Hercules, and he quickly gets into a big brown jar.
There's a monster with 9 heads in the lake of Lerna,
cries Eurystheus from the jar.
People call it the Hydra. Your task number 2 is to go and kill it.
Near the palace, Hercules meets his young cousin, Iolaus.
I can't stop and talk,
says Hercules.
I'm going to the lake of Lerna. I must kill the Hydra there.
Can I come too?
Asks Iolaus excitedly. When they arrive at the lake, it is nearly dark. Hercules puts some fire onto an arrow and shoots it over the water.
I want to call the Hydra to me,
he says. Suddenly, the 9 heads of the Hydra come out of the lake. They look at Iolaus and Hercules with angry red eyes.
Help!
Cries Iolaus. Hercules quickly takes out his sword and cuts off one of the Hydra's heads. But from the red stump come 2 more new heads. Hercules then cuts off a different head. And again, 2 more new heads come from that stump.
Oh no,
he thinks. Just then, the goddess Athena arrives.
I come from your father, Zeus,
she says.
He is angry with the goddess Hera because she is working against you. He wants to help you with your tasks. What can I do for you?
How can I kill the Hydra?
Asks Hercules.
Tell me, quickly.
When you cut off the heads, you must burn the stumps. No new heads can come from them after that. Good luck.
So Hercules cuts off the monsters' heads one by one, and Iolaus burns the stumps. When Hercules cuts off the last head, the Hydra suddenly goes down in the water and dies. The next morning, Hercules arrives back at the palace, but he can't find the king.
Eurystheus!
He calls.
I'm here! The Hydra's dead!
All right. I can hear you,
says Eurystheus, and he comes out angrily from his big brown jar.
For your 3rd task, You must find the goddess Artemis's golden deer and bring it back here. That deer can run faster than any arrow. Nobody can catch it.
Hercules finds the golden deer, and he runs after it for a year and a day. The deer runs up hills, down hills, and across the country, but Hercules can't catch it. One day, Hercules sees the beautiful deer next to a lake. It is drinking quietly from the water. Hercules catches it and runs back to the palace with the deer in his arms.
King Eurystheus! I have something for you!
Cries Hercules.
Come and see!
Eurystheus comes out of the palace with his daughter, Admete. Hercules puts the golden deer in front of Eurystheus. But before the king can take the deer, it runs away.
I want that golden deer!
Cries Admete.
And when I want something, I always get it.
Not this time,
says Eurystheus, and he looks angrily at Hercules.
Task number 4 is to go into the mountains and catch a big wild boar there. And you must bring it back alive.
Chapter 3. Hercules runs up into the cold mountains. Suddenly, he looks up and sees a huge wild boar on a rock near him. Hercules stops and thinks for a minute. Then he chases the wild boar up into the snow at the top of the mountain. The wild boar has little legs, and it can't run very easily through the snow. Hercules catches the wild boar. He puts it on his back and walks down the mountain. Soon Hercules arrives at the palace. King Eurystheus looks at the huge wild boar on Hercules' back and gets quickly into his jar again.
Take it away,
he cries. Hercules comes back not long after without the wild boar.
For your next task, you need to visit King Augeas. He has some interesting work for you,
says Eurystheus.
He has hundreds of bulls, and nobody cleans their dirty stables. You must clean them all in one day.
Hercules meets King Augeas at the stables, and he tells the king about his task.
but nobody can clean those dirty stables in one day.
Laughs the king.
Look at them.
Hercules looks through the door of the stables, and he doesn't feel very happy.
They're very dirty, it's true,
he says. Just then, on a hill behind the stables, Hercules sees a river with big rocks next to it. he walks up to the river and sits down on one of the rocks.
I need to think carefully about this,
he says to Augeas. The next morning, Hercules gets up early. First, he takes the bulls out of the stable and away up the hill. After that, he makes a big hole in the wall at one end of the stables, and he makes a second hole in the wall at the other end of the stables. He then takes the rocks from next to the river and puts them into the water one by one. Hercules works all morning.
What are you doing?
Asks King Augeas.
Wait and see,
says Hercules. Hercules is slowly making a big wall of rocks across the river. When he finishes the wall, the water in the river has nowhere to go. After some time, the water suddenly comes out of the river and it runs down the hill to the stables. The water then goes quickly through the dirty stables and it cleans them beautifully. That evening, Hercules takes all the rocks out of the river, and the water doesn't go down the hill through the stables anymore. He then takes some small rocks and closes the two big holes in the stable walls before the bulls come back in for the night. When King Augeas sees the clean stables, he is very happy.
Please stay and eat at my palace tonight,
he says. The next morning, Hercules arrives back at Eurystheus' palace with a big smile on his face.
I don't want to hear about the stables,
says Eurystheus angrily. He doesn't get into his jar this time.
Now, for task number 6, you must go to Lake Stymphalus. There are some big birds there, and they are killing all the cows. You must stop them.
Chapter 4. At Lake Stymphalus, Hercules meets some men from the small town near there.
Please help us, Hercules,
they say.
There are huge birds in the tall trees next to the lake. They have metal feathers.
From time to time, they leave the trees for the sky, and then they drop their feathers down on our cows and kill them.
Hercules looks up just then and sees hundreds of birds in the sky over his head. The birds suddenly begin to drop their metal feathers down on him. But the feathers can't go through Hercules' lion skin. He shoots lots of arrows at the birds, but they quickly fly away up into the tops of the tall trees again.
I can't shoot them up there,
thinks Hercules.
Athena, where are you?
I need help.
Just then, Athena arrives with a large metal rattle in her hand.
You can make a big noise with this,
she says.
Those birds don't like a lot of noise, you see.
And with that, she gives the rattle to Hercules. Hercules puts the rattle up over his head and moves it left and right again and again. It makes a lot of noise. Suddenly, the birds fly down out of the trees. Hercules can then easily shoot and kill them with his arrows. Hercules goes back to the palace.
Eurystheus! I have a bird from Lake Stymphalus for you,
he calls. And he puts the dead bird down, not far from Eurystheus's jar.
Let's see,
says Eurystheus. And he comes out of his jar. He goes over and looks at the dead bird. And he cuts his hand on one of its metal feathers.
Hercules, get out of here,
cries the king angrily.
For task number 7, you must go at once to Crete and catch King Minos's white bull there. And be quick about it.
Hercules goes by boat to Crete. When he arrives there, King Minos is very happy to see him.
Oh, there's a big white bull,
he says.
It's running here and there and killing people everywhere. You're big and strong, Hercules. Please, catch it and take it away. It's in a small town near here now.
Hercules goes to the town and waits. It is very quiet there, and nobody is on the streets. Suddenly, the bull comes out from behind a tree and it runs towards Hercules. The bull has big horns and fire is coming out of its mouth. The bull comes nearer and nearer to Hercules. But the fire doesn't burn him because he's wearing his lion skin. Hercules takes the bull by the horns and gets up on its back. For 2 days, the bull runs all over Crete. Hercules stays on its back day and night. In the end, the bull is very tired and it can't run or fight anymore. Hercules quickly puts the bull on his boat and takes it back to King Eurystheus. Eurystheus is very afraid of the bull.
I don't want that thing in my home. Kill it at once,
he cries from his jar. But Hercules opens the palace door and the bull runs away. That night, Eurystheus talks to the goddess Hera.
Hercules does all our tasks very easily,
he says.
What can we find for him to do next?
Hera thinks for a minute. Then she smiles.
I know,
she cries. and she says something quietly in the king's ear.
Oh, yes.
He laughs.
That's good. That's very good.
The next morning, Eurystheus calls for Hercules. When Hercules arrives, the king is sitting in his big metal chair.
Hercules,
He says,
task number 8 is to bring back the horses from the palace of King Diomedes.
Of course.
smiles Hercules, and he walks quickly out of the palace.
And don't forget,
Begins Hera, and she looks out from behind Eurystheus's chair.
Diomedes' horses eat people.
Then she and Eurystheus begin to laugh and laugh. But Hercules is far away from them now, and he doesn't hear. Hercules goes by boat to the palace of King Diomedes with 4 of his friends.
We're tired, hungry, and far from home,
They say to the king when they arrive at his door.
Come in.
Says King Diomedes.
You can eat with us this evening and stay here tonight.
He looks at the men's big, strong bodies, and he thinks,
I can give them to my hungry horses tomorrow.
That evening, Hercules hears King Diomedes talk quietly to one of his men.
When Hercules and his friends are sleeping tonight, you must help me to kill them.
The king says to the man.
They can be a nice breakfast for my horses.
Hercules says nothing, but later he talks to his friends.
They want to kill us tonight. We can't go to sleep. We must wait for them and fight them when they come for us.
That night, Hercules' friends go to sleep very quickly. But Hercules cannot sleep. Suddenly, King Diomedes and his men come into the room.
Quick! Get out of bed!
Cries Hercules to his friends. They get up, fight, and kill the king and his men.
What shall we do with the dead bodies, Hercules?
Ask his friends.
Give them to the horses, of course.
He answers. The horses are very quiet and happy after they eat Diomedes and his men. When Hercules brings the horses back to Eurystheus's palace, they look hungrily at the king.
Take those horses away.
Cries Eurystheus. He runs into the garden and goes behind a tree. When Hercules comes back without the horses, Princess Admete is talking to her father.
Queen Hippolyta of the Amazons has a beautiful golden belt,
She says,
and I want it.
Well, that's your next task, Hercules.
Says Eurystheus from behind the tree.
Task number 9. Get Queen Hippolyta's belt and bring it back for my daughter.
Chapter 5. So Hercules goes by boat to the country of the Amazons. He takes some friends with him.
We must be careful,
says Hercules when they arrive.
Only big, strong women live here, and they usually kill men when they meet them, people say.
Hercules soon finds Queen Hippolyta. She is tall, strong, and very beautiful. He is surprised when Hippolyta is nice to him.
Hello, Hercules,
she says.
It's wonderful to meet you. You're the strongest man in the world, I hear.
Thank you,
smiles Hercules. With his sword, he quickly cuts 2 H's and an arrow of love between them on a tree. Then he takes some flowers in his hand and he gives them to the Amazon queen.
Thank you,
says Hippolyta. Hercules then tells Hippolyta about his task.
I need to take your golden belt back to King Eurystheus' daughter,
he says.
You can have it, of course,
says Hippolyta. And at once she puts her hands on her beautiful belt. But Hera is watching all this from behind a tree.
This task is going well for Hercules,
she thinks.
I must do something fast and stop him.
So Hera puts on the dress of an Amazon woman and she goes and talks to Hippolyta's guards.
Hercules wants to take Queen Hippolyta's belt and then kill her,
says Hera. The guards run quickly to their queen. She is giving Hercules the golden belt.
Stop!
They cry. Hercules quickly takes the belt. The guards fight Hercules and his friends. But in the end, they get away from the Amazons and back to their boat, and Hercules has the belt with him. Hercules is very tired when he arrives back at the palace.
Where's that belt?
Asks Princess Admete. She puts it on.
Oh no! I can't wear that!
She says angrily.
It's huge!
Hercules goes into the palace garden, sits down, and closes his eyes. Eurystheus puts his head up from behind some flowers.
What are you doing here, Hercules?
He says.
You have 3 more tasks to do. First, find Geryon, the monster with 3 heads, and bring back his red cows to me.
Geryon lives in a far-away country, and Hercules goes by boat across dark and angry seas to get there. When he arrives, he gets off his boat and looks everywhere. He can see the red cows on a hill, but he can't see Geryon.
This is an easy task,
he thinks.
I can put those cows on my boat this minute and go home at once.
Suddenly, Geryon walks over the hill. He has 3 huge heads and 6 long arms. Hercules quickly goes behind a rock.
Who's there?
Cries the monster.
Come out now!
Hercules thinks quietly for a minute or two. Then he runs out and stands behind Geryon.
I'm behind you!
He calls. Geryon slowly moves his 3 big heads to look down at Hercules. Hercules then shoots one arrow through all 3 of the monster's heads, and at once Geryon falls dead at his feet. Hercules puts all Geryon's cows on his boat and goes home with them. When he brings them into the palace garden, they start to eat all the flowers there.
Take those big fat cows out of my garden!
Calls Eurystheus from a palace window. Hercules takes the cows away.
You must go to the end of the world now and look for the goddess Hera's garden there,
cries Eurystheus when Hercules comes back.
And bring me 3 golden apples from the garden once you find it.
When Hercules leaves the palace, Hera and Eurystheus laugh for a long time.
Only gods can go into my garden,
cries Hera in the end.
and Hercules is only a man. He can never take those golden apples from the tree. And of course, there's my friendly dragon in the garden too. Ha ha ha!
Chapter 6. After many long and dangerous days on the road, Hercules arrives at the end of the world. He looks over the wall of Hera's garden and sees the golden apples on a tree. 3 young women are sitting under the tree.
Can I come into your garden?
Asks Hercules.
Are you a god?
They ask.
No.
Says Hercules.
Sorry, gods only.
They smile. Just then, a dangerous dragon with 100 heads arrives.
Bye!
Says Hercules. Not far away, Hercules sees the god Atlas. He is holding the world on his huge shoulders.
Atlas, how can I get those golden apples?
Asks Hercules.
First, kill the dragon.
Says Atlas.
Then come back and hold the world for me. I can go and get the apples for you easily. Those 3 young women in the garden are my daughters.
Hercules goes and kills the dragon at once. He then takes the world from Atlas and puts it on his shoulders.
It's very heavy.
He thinks.
I can't hold it for long.
Soon, Atlas comes back with the apples.
You can have the world again now,
says Hercules.
No, thank you,
laughs Atlas.
I don't want to hold it anymore. I'm tired of that.
All right, but can you take it for 1 minute?
Asks Hercules.
I want to put it up on my shoulders better. I don't want to drop it.
So Atlas takes the world on his shoulders again.
Wonderful. I'm going home now,
says Hercules.
Thanks for the apples.
Come back!
Cries Atlas. But Hercules runs away. When Hercules arrives back at Eurystheus' palace with the golden apples, Hera is very angry.
We must think of one last, truly dangerous task for Hercules. A task worse than all the other tasks before it,
she says to the king.
I know. Let's send him down into the underworld. He can bring back King Hades and Queen Persephone's dog, Cerberus. Nobody can get away from that dog alive.
At first, Hercules can't find the door to the underworld, but Athena helps him.
Go down that big hole behind those rocks,
she says. Hercules goes down the long, dark hole and meets an old man near a river.
I'm Charon,
says the man.
I take dead people across the river to the underworld in my long, black boat.
Take me across too,
says Hercules. Charon looks carefully at Hercules.
No,
he says.
I can't. You're not dead.
Hercules holds up his sword in front of Charon's face, and he looks angrily at the old man.
Oh, all right,
says Charon, and he takes Hercules across the river in his boat. Once Hercules is in the underworld, he walks through its dark streets. Dead and cold white people come and look at his warm pink skin.
Can you see that? He's alive,
they say. In the end, Hercules arrives at Hades and Persephone's tall, dark palace. He tells them about his 12 tasks.
Can I take Cerberus with me?
He asks them.
It's the last of my tasks.
Yes, you can,
says King Hades.
But please bring him back after Eurystheus sees him. He's our guard dog, you know.
Hercules goes up to Cerberus. He is a huge dog with 3 heads and snakes all over his body. He runs at Hercules with his 3 big mouths open. But Hercules is not afraid. He does not run away. He catches Cerberus in his hands. Then he plays with him and says nice things to him. In the end, Cerberus is happy to go with him. Not many people are nice to Cerberus, you see. When Hercules walks back into the palace with Cerberus, Eurystheus gets into his jar.
Ah! Take that dangerous dog away from here!
Cries Eurystheus. He is very afraid.
That's it, Hercules! No more tasks! And I never want to see you again!
Hercules takes Cerberus back to the underworld. Then he goes to the priestess at Delphi and falls at her feet.
My 12 tasks are over,
he says.
Can the gods forgive me now for my crime?
Yes,
says the priestess.
the gods forgive you. You are only half a god now, but when your time comes to die, you can go and live in the sky with your father Zeus. Then you can be truly a god and never die.
Me? A god?
Says Hercules.
How can that be?
He is very surprised. But through the years, everybody learns about Hercules, the strongest man in the world, and his 12 tasks. No one forgets his story once they hear it. You are reading it today. And so you can see it is true. In the end, Hercules never dies.